All right, old school NBA fans, self-research NBA facts. Got another video for you. As always, thanks to anybody who watches my videos, subscribes to my channel. I really appreciate it. This video here, very interesting one I find. A lot of the LeBron crowd, the LeBron media, all this stuff, they love to talk about Hall of Famers on a team. No matter the age of them, they could be young, they could be old, none of that is relevant. They'll just list the Hall of Famers that was on the other team. I find something that's way more effective. Now again, this is just like Hall of Fame. This is something that's voted on. But I think we'd all agree that for the most part, it's pretty accurate. And that would be, how did the best players of all time, number one, how often did they play a team that had a player who finished top 5 in MVP? And how did they do against those teams? I think that is way more telling than how many Hall of Famers are on a team. You know, you might have a Hall of Famer that, isn't even on the MVP ballot. So obviously he wasn't one of the, anywhere from 10 to 20 best players for that season. And sure, there's, role players. You can't just rely on Hall of Famers or All NBA or All Stars or top 5 in MVP. There's been plenty of good teams over the years that don't have that. But to just shut the LeBron people up, I'm making this video to show that playing the 5 best or at least most valuable players in that season is way more impressive than some Hall of Famer that might be 38 years old or whatever, or might be like 19 or 20 or 21 or whatever like that. This means that these guys were one of the best. And even all NBA, not misleading, but there were seasons where David Robinson and Hakeem Olajuwon would go first and second team all NBA, but they're 2 of the top 3 or 4 players in the NBA. So top 5 MVP finishers takes care of that right there. It shows you who was the most valuable players for that season. So anyway, I'll just get right into it. I'll go to the same list that I always go to. All right. Now, some of these guys haven't played as many as you think. Nikola Jokic. Now, I'm a fan of Nikola Jokic more than anything else. Everybody talks about his stats and, how he's just, crushing the league and all this stuff. To me, I don't care about that stuff, the stats. I could care less. What I like about Nikola Jokic is his demeanor, his attitude. This is a guy that has no difference in expression no matter what happens on the court. Those are the guys that I, admire because, they're not caught up in this whole me thing, this narcissistic era that these guys do. He's not one of those players. He's one of the few. You're not going to see flexing, you know what I mean, or making some stupid gesture that all it's about is, look at me, I need attention, I'm an insecure, narcissistic little bastard. That's what it's all about. But he doesn't do that. So I have a lot of respect for Nikola Jokic. With that being said, though, people have made a lot about how he's never beaten a 50-win team in the playoffs. And while that is true, the bubble season, those some of those teams would have been 50-win teams, like the Clippers. I think they beat them. You do have to just play who's in front of you. But it's true that maybe that championship was a little easier than some of the other ones. Like the 2023 championship, let's face it, they never played over a 4 seed or a 50-win team. It was a pretty easy run. They were never challenged really at all. And this is only a 53-win team. But with that being said, Nikola Jokic has played 14 playoff series in his career. Only 3 were against players top 5 in the MVP. That's it. Just 3 out of 14, which kind of low when you really think about it. That's a percentage of 21.42% of his series. He's playing against a top 5 player in MVP. His record against those 3 was 2-1 for a 66.66%. The percentage is good, but he just isn't playing that many, at least not yet. You know what I mean? But I'm sure that could change. Absolutely. Giannis is even in a worse situation. He's played 15 series so far in his career, 15 playoff series. He's only played against one player who finished in the top 5 in MVP. I about fell off the chair when I saw that. I was like, what? And you know who it was? It was in the 2021 finals against Phoenix, Chris Paul. Chris Paul finished 5th for MVP. That's it. That's the one and only player that Giannis has ever played who was top 5 in MVP in the playoffs. I was astounded by that. Now, he did win it, because they won the finals that year, but only 6.66% of his series against the top 5 player for MVP. I mean, I never would have believed that in a million years. I would have lost a lot of money on that one. All right, Elgin Baylor. Now, these older guys, you can kind of take them with a grain of salt, and I hate when people diminish the older eras. I hate it. It's like, so you want to sit and tell me about, I don't want to hear about the older players, but yet you get mad when the people today try to bash the 80s and 90s? No, I'm not doing that. This channel honors all the eras, except for the new era. I don't honor it that much because, it's not even, it's the league, sure, the commissioner, the rule changes, all that, but the players also, they're just not that same type of player that we were used to seeing, the leave it all out on the court, I'm going to die before I lose, that kind of attitude. You don't see that anymore. That's over. But anyway, Elgin Baylor in his 24 playoff series, 13 against top 5 in MVP. That's a high percentage of 54.16. Now, he only had a 3-10 record in those 13 series. That's only 23%. But he was playing a bunch against Bill Russell. He played against Bob Pettit a lot. But one thing that I always gave Elgin Baylor a lot of credit for, and I know people crap on this guy. I don't know why. Elgin Baylor was great. 10-time first-team All-NBA. But anyway, his rookie season on a 33-39 Minneapolis team, they beat the St. Louis Hawks, who were the defending champions in the West Finals. Bob Pettit won the MVP in 1959, and Elgin Baylor and the Lakers beat him. And that's before Jerry West was on the team. I was always impressed with that series. But anyway, all told, he is 3-10. Again, always, pretty much outmatched against Bill Russell. A lot of these times, like in 1959 in the finals, Russell and Cousy finished in the top 4 in MVP. In the 66 finals, Russell finished 4th, Sam Jones tied for 5th. In the 67 Western Division semifinals, without Jerry West, Nate Thurmond finished 2nd, Rick Barry finished 5th, and then in the 1970 finals, Willis Reed won the MVP, and Walt Frazier finished 4th. That's a lot of firepower right there. Now, I know in 1970 they had Wilt and Jerry West. Absolutely. They lost in 7. I get that. But still, I hate when people sell Elgin Baylor short. That guy was a great player. Go watch some film on him. Forget about the stats. Just go watch some film on Elgin Baylor. All right. David Robinson, only 9 out of 27 of his series did he play a top 5 player in MVP. That's for 1/3 of the time. His record is only 2-5, 28.57% winning percentage. That is the reason why some people have David Robinson in the top 20. I don't. I felt like he had too many letdowns in the 90s when he had a good record and everything, but never could really get over that hump. The 95 season was their best chance. They had Rodman and everything, but just couldn't get over that hump for whatever reason. And then obviously when Duncan came along, all that changed. But it wasn't just Duncan. It was Duncan and Robinson together. They were both, just great players. But anyway, Bob Pettit, 12 of his 19 series, 63.15. That's a lot. A 5-7 record. But again, he's playing the Lakers, who, had West and Baylor, and then, of course, playing a lot against Boston. I think that was like 4 series right there. and that's tough sledding. 41.66, but again, yeah, I just take the older guys kind of with a grain of salt, only because there wasn't as many players and teams and all that. You're probably playing a top 5 MVP almost every series. Definitely in the conference finals and finals, you're playing every one of those series. Okay. Kevin Durant. Now, Kevin Durant is very misleading. 14 out of 32 for a 43.75%. That seems like a high percent, but I mean, it was. And a record of 10-4, 71.42%. But 6 of these was between 2017 and 2019 before he got injured. That's 6 of them right there. You know, with him and Curry together did this. And, you know, without those 2.5 playoff runs on Golden State, Kevin Durant's 4-4. So let's just call it what it is. Kevin Garnett, 15 of his 24, which is a pretty high percentage. That's 5/8 of the time, 62.5. A 6-9 record, surprisingly not as bad as you would think, considering how hilariously outgunned he was going up against San Antonio and the Lakers. And, you know, those guys had top 5 MVP, Duncan, Kobe, Shaq, you know, all the time. 40%. He also, early in his career, he had to play like the Rockets. There was other good teams he had to face. But all in all, not bad for Garnett considering what he had. Karl Malone, 13 out of his 38 for a 34.2% of the time. That's okay. He's got a 7-6 record, though. 53.84%, which I thought was really good. You know, not awesome, but pretty good, at least average. And considering how many playoff series they lost, I thought that actually was pretty good. You know, they had that really good run in 97 and in 98. I always thought that Malone and Stockton, you know, were kind of underrated together. They were great. They never could win a championship, but there was always a hotter team in their way, like the 95 Rockets, like the 96 Sonics, the Bulls in 97 and 98. It was just always that hotter team. And they played well. I mean, I think it was in 88, they took the defending champion Lakers to 7 games in the semifinals. You know, they just could never really just get over that hump. But anyway, Oscar Robertson, 8 out of his 17 for a 47.05%, which is okay considering they played Boston, you know, several times. Only 1-7 for Oscar against top 5 in MVP. And that wasn't just when he was on Cincinnati. Also when he was on Milwaukee. You know, they were playing the Lakers. They were playing Boston in the finals one year. Got beat by Golden State. 1-7 for a 12.5%. Not very good. And that's one of the reasons I have Oscar Robertson outside my top 15 is because not the stats, he was a phenomenal individual player. It was the winning. He just didn't affect winning enough, and he had pretty good teammates. You know, good enough to at least once beat Boston or something, you know, and it just never happened. And also, in 1974, Oscar's last season, they had Game 7 at home against Boston. And you got Kareem, prime Kareem, as your center, and you can't get it done. I mean, that always did not sit well with me. For people that love Kareem or Oscar, that series always brought them down in my book. All right, Steph Curry, just like KD. Okay, 13 out of 29, which is okay, 44.8. You know, pretty good, about average, maybe a hair over. 11-2 record. That is probably one of the best on the whole board. However, without Kevin Durant, they're only 5-2. And even with Kevin Durant, one I forgot to mention, both Kevin Durant and Steph Curry, one of those top 5 finishers was Kawhi Leonard in 2017. Kawhi Leonard played 2.5 quarters of one game. You know, I shouldn't even really count that. But, you know, I did because technically they did play him and beat him. But anyway, like I said, without Kevin Durant on the team, only 5-2, you know, which is still a pretty good record, but it's not 11-2. Moses Malone, he played 11 out of 21 of his series for 52.38%. A 6-5 record, which anytime you have a winning record against top 5 players in MVP, that's good. 54.54%. So Moses Malone did pretty good, I thought. Jerry West, 11 out of his 26 for 42.3. Again, that's, around average. 3-8 record. We all know why. They ran into Boston, 7 times, whatever it was. And then, they lost to the Knicks in the finals, yada, yada. So only a 27.27 winning percentage. It is what it is. Unfortunately, they just could never beat Boston in any of those finals. Dr. J, 10 out of 28, 35.71. A little low, but he does have a 6-4 record for 60%, which is, that's a good record against top 5 in MVP, no doubt. LeBron James, in his 54 playoff series, only 13 for 24.07% of his series. He played a top 5 player in MVP. That's what happens when you play in a weak East. And of those 13, his record is 5-8 for a 38.46%. And what's interesting is, like, you take 2017 Golden State, for example. Durant and Curry, neither one were top 5. They both kind of canceled each other out or whatever. They were like 6-8 or something like that. So that one didn't even count. Imagine if one of those guys was top 5. That'd be another one on his resume as a loss. And before you say, well, yeah, but they got 2 guys in the top 8. Well, so did Orlando in 96. I think there were 2 top 10s. So did Orlando in 95. So did Seattle in 96, because Sean Kemp and Gary Payton finished 6th and 8th for MVP. So, Michael Jordan dealt with that too. Tim Duncan dealt with Kobe and Shaq in the top 5 like 3 times. Okay, Shaquille O'Neal, 17 out of 43 series for a 39.53, meh. But 11-6 record, that's 64.7. But again, he had Kobe Bryant on his team. But even still, that's a really good percentage. Tim Duncan, 16 out of 48. That's exactly 1/3. Actually, a little low. 8-8 record. But he did play, I think it was either 3 or 4 series with multiple top 5 for MVP on the same team. I think it was Lakers in 01. Maybe it was 02, 03, and 04. Those 3 years right there to get 2 players top 5 for MVP. But even still, 8-8, 50%, it's okay. But what's funny is Akeem Olajuwon, 10 for 29, actually a slightly higher percentage than Tim Duncan, played top 5 MVP candidates in a playoff series, had the same winning percentage, 5-5, 50%. For all the good teammates, the great teammates that Duncan had, and Olajuwon didn't, they got the same exact record against top 5 finishers for MVP. That's amazing. You know what I mean? Like, Olajuwon had garbage for teammates most of his career. But to be tied with Tim Duncan, pretty remarkable, really. Wilt Chamberlain, 15 out of his 29. Obviously, he's over half, 51.72. Again, he's an old guy. You expect to have more because there was fewer teams. 7-8 record, better than I thought it would be, 46.66. Wilt did have a couple series he should have won, but, again, that's a big reason why I keep him out of my top 5, because of the winning. The winning has got to be on everybody's top criteria. If you're not playing to win, then what the frick's the difference? Okay. Larry Bird, 14 out of 33 series for 42.42. Okay, that's about right. Average, maybe a hair over. 8-6 record for a 57.14%. And he was playing, Dr. J and Moses Malone together. There was like Sidney Moncrief, of course, Kareem and Magic. I don't think Olajuwon finished in 80s, but Moses Malone in 81. He definitely played his fair share of good players, but Bird's team was stacked, no doubt. But he did have a winning record, 8-6. So it's got to be worth something. 57.14%. That's a good percentage. Kareem, 15 out of 49 of his series, only 30.61%. That's a low percentage. And again, I got to think that's because the West was just not very good for a lot of the year. Definitely the 80s, second half of his career, the West was just not good at all. And in his career, this one here is stunning. Top 5 for MVP record, Kareem, 7-8. A losing record against top 5 players for MVP? What's that about? I never would have thought so. For the same percentage as Wilt Chamberlain, 46.66. Kobe Bryant, 19 out of 42 for 45.23%. That's a pretty high percentage. 11-8 against those teams. Pretty good, 57.89. A winning record, more than a winning record. But again, of course, he had Shaq, yada, yada. Magic Johnson, 11 out of 40 for 27.5%. That's low, very low. Not quite as bad as LeBron, but it's low. And a 5-6 record. That's also a little low, a losing record for Magic. But I know some of that happened, later in the 89 finals, for example, when he was injured. I don't think that Detroit had a top 5 for MVP, but I know that series and then the 91 against the Bulls and all that, but they just didn't play a lot of top 5 for MVP players. They just didn't. If they weren't playing Boston or Philly, I think maybe they played like San Antonio with George Gervin once or twice. That's about it. There just was not a lot of those guys in the West. They were either on the Lakers or they were in the East. Bill Russell, not surprisingly, and this is what I try to tell everybody. You say whatever you want about who was on Bill Russell's team. You want to think that they were all Hall of Famers regardless of Bill Russell being on the team, you go right ahead and think so. That's opinion-based. You can't prove it either way. But I always felt that half those guys would not be Hall of Famers without Bill Russell. But the one thing that is undeniable, Bill Russell played 25 out of 29 of his playoff series was against at least one player who finished top 5 for MVP for an 86.2%, which is easily the highest on this list. So he was playing the best players in the league practically every series. It was Wilt Chamberlain, or it was Oscar Robertson, or it was Baylor or West, or even Baylor and West. It was Bob Pettit. Always the best of the best. And his record, not surprisingly, is 24-1 against top 5 players for MVP, 96%, which is insane. I didn't count 58 because he just had so many injuries. I just didn't count that one. But you can if you want. That's fine. You'd be 24-2, which I think would put him at about, probably something around 91% or something like that. Last but not least, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, 17 of his 37 series, which is 45.9%. Now, you look at it, the players after the merger, the only players who played a higher percentage against top 5 players for MVP in the playoffs were Kevin Garnett, there's one. Yeah, Oscar. Moses Malone, there's 2. And that's it. So Michael Jordan, on this list of all the players, after the merger, the only players who had played a higher percentage of top 5 for MVP playoff series, player who was on the team, was only Moses Malone and Kevin Garnett. That's it. Every other player, Michael Jordan played a higher percentage of top 5 MVP players. Period. So anybody, this competition thing is garbage. He was playing one of the best players in the league pretty much every year for sure. And then, what was his record? 13-4 was his record against top 5 for MVP. In his first series against Terry Cummings, they got beat. Okay, there's one. 86 against Boston. Bird was MVP. There's 2. 87 against Boston. Bird finished 3rd. McHale finished 4th. But there's 3 series right there. His first 3 series, he goes 0-3. After that, 13-1. Annihilating everybody in his path, basically, who was top 5 for MVP. I think the only exception was 95 Orlando. I think that was the only team that beat him from 88 through 98. For a percentage of 76.47%. And again, Giannis has only played one, so it's really hard to count him when he's only played one. But you look at everybody since the merger, you're going to see, Steph Curry, of course, he really should be 10-2, but we're leaving it in there. But he needed Kevin Durant, to weaken his own conference and make his conference stronger. But he's got the highest winning percentage of anyone on this entire list who's played at least, 5 series, I guess you could say, except for Steph Curry. And Curry, needed Kevin Durant to win 6 of those playoff series right there. But the one that is always amazes me, and why you will never hear this from the media, never in a million years, against top 5 finishers for MVP in LeBron James's career, he only played 24.07% of his playoff series. Find me anyone on this list with a lower percentage, with the exception of Giannis and Jokic. Only those 2. Now again, their careers are not done yet, so that could easily change. But besides these 2 guys right here, every other all-time great on this list is over his little 24.07%. Then you look at his record of 5-8 against those guys for a 38.46%. And again, that's not the lowest, but it's pretty low. You got, Elgin Baylor, there's 1. David Robinson, there's 2. You got, Oscar Robertson, there's 3. Jerry West, there's 4. That's it. 4 guys lower than LeBron James. And there's 24 names on here. Only 4 names. That's it. 4 freaking guys. Amazing. So this is a guy who didn't play that many top 5 for MVP. And then when he did play him, he had a lousy 5-8 record. That's the GOAT. That's my issue right there. You want to argue LeBron James is an all-time great, or even argue that he's a top 10 player. Fine. But the greatest player who's ever played in the NBA, it's delusion. It is just flat out freaking delusion. I don't even know what to say to you people that think this. You just have to have LeBron be the GOAT. You're not basing this on actual facts. You're basing it on what you want it to be. It's insane. I'll run through them real quick. There's only 13 of them, so it ain't going to take very long. Okay, so in 2006, against Detroit in the East semis, Chauncey Billups finished 5th. LeBron lost that series. In 2000, the next one was the 07 finals. Tim Duncan finished 4th. LeBron lost that series. In 08, in the East semis against Boston, Kevin Garnett was 3rd. He lost that series. In 09 against Orlando in the East finals, Dwight Howard finished 4th. He lost that series. Then you got Derrick Rose in 2011, LeBron's freshly minted super team. Yeah, they beat Derrick Rose. There's one of the wins. The 2012 finals, Kevin Durant finished 2nd. There's 2 of them. So Derrick Rose in 2011, Kevin Durant in 2012. There's 2 of the wins right there. Okay. In 2015 against Steph Curry, lost. 2016 against Steph Curry, he won that one. So there's 3. In 2017 against frickin' Boston, Isaiah Thomas finished 5th. So there's your 4th one right there, Isaiah Thomas. Okay? And that was in 2017. So that means, in 2020, they beat James Harden. Okay? That's it. In the last 7 seasons, LeBron James has beat one team that had a top 5 player for MVP, and that was in 2020 against Houston. James Harden finished 3rd. That's it. And of course, he lost in 23 to Jokic, who finished 2nd. Lost to Jokic in 24, who finished 1st. And also in 2021 against Phoenix, Chris Paul finished 5th. But that's how it is. Whenever there's a player top 5 for MVP that LeBron faces, he's 5-8. That's his record. So you want to go on thinking that these are high, good numbers? You can go on thinking that. That's fine. But it's a joke, is what it is. So anyway, that's all I got for this video. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, please hit the like button. It would really help me out. I'd very much appreciate it. And till next time.